Yo, what up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yud Ches of Masechta Yoma. Oh my gosh, it's very bright over here. You probably can't see me so good in the video, but also I can't even see the Gemara so good. So it's going to be an interesting Daf. Aside from that, it's going to be an interesting Daf just because it is. So the Daf today talks about kind of getting closer to Yom Kippur. We're getting closer and closer to Yom Kippur, Erev Yom Kippur. Interesting stuff. I don't know. It's not like big sugyas that I'm going to break down. I think let's just jump in. So we're on Daf Yud Ches Amud Aleph at the Mishnah, 4 lines into the wide lines. Moslo Zakein Miziknei Bezdin. Okay, so we're saying that during this week of quarantine, they give him these elders from the elders of Bezdin, the kohen in front of Beseder Hayom, and they read in front of him the Seder Hayom, the order of the day. Who could tell me what the order of the day is? Parshas Achrei Mos, the parsha that talks about Aharon HaKohen on Yom Kippur. V'amlo ishi kohen gadol, they say, Mr. Kohen Gadol, Kra'ata b'ficha, you should read it yourself with your mouth, Shema Shachachta, just in case perhaps you forgot, Shema lo lamadta, or maybe you didn't know them in the first place. Interesting. Erev Yom Kippurim, so now when it comes to Erev Yom Kippur, Shachris Ma'amidin also b'shar Mizrach, so in the morning, they put him by the eastern gate. What's the eastern gate? Sharnikin or Lamaisa? I guess, I don't know. Umavir in the front of Parim ve'el muchvasim, they pass before him cows, rams, sheep, so that he gets into the hang of things. So he's getting into doing the avoda to prepare for the next day. During the entire week leading up to Erev Yom Kippur, they didn't hold back any food or drink from him. Erev Yom Kippurim, however, on Yom Kippur, im chashecha, once already it's getting close to game time, they wouldn't let him eat too much as it was getting close, because if he eats too much, then he'll get tired. And if he gets tired, he might fall asleep. If he falls asleep, he might see Keri, and then it'll be puzzle. And it's kind of important that he's not puzzle for Yom Kippur. Says the Gemara. Remember, we read a minute ago something very interesting that they say to the kohen gadol, why don't you yourself verbalize the words of Achrei Mos just in case you forgot, or maybe you never knew them in the first place. Correct the Gemara, what does that mean? Okay, fine, if you want to say maybe he forgot Epis, okay, he's human. He forgets. What do you mean maybe you never learned Parshas, you're the kohen gadol, you never learned Parshas Achrei Mos in your life? Would we ever in our right minds appoint a kohen gadol who never even learned Chumash, who never learned Parshas Achrei Mos? Ve'atanya, we learn in the Brayso about kohen gadol me'echav. The pasuk says that in describing the kohen gadol, he says the kohen that is greater than all his other contemporaries. Shei gadol me'echav, that he should be greater than everybody else. B'choach, in strength, b'noi, in physical appearance, b'chachma, in wisdom, b'osher, wealth. He should be somebody who's a yotze min haklal, somebody who's unique in every possible way. And he never even learned Chumash. So, how do we know that if there's somebody who deserves to be the kohen gadol, but he's not particularly wealthy, that his contemporaries should chip in and give him money so that he will be wealthy? Tamaloma, the pasuk says, that the kohen who is great on account of his contemporaries, make him great even if it means from his brethren. I think what that means is that if he's not wealthy, so they should make him wealthy. That his wealth, that his greatness comes from other people, that they support him. Rav Yosef lo kasha. So Rav Yosef says, I can explain to you what the Mishnah means when it says that maybe the kohen gadol never actually learned Parshas Achrei Mos. Maybe you can guess the answer. Kan b'mikdash rishon, kan b'mikdash sheni. There's a big difference between the first Beis HaMikdash and the second Beis HaMikdash. In the first Beis HaMikdash, it was unheard of. It wasn't even fathomable, inconceivable, that a kohen gadol would never have learned Parshas Achrei Mos. I mean, just simply, it's inconceivable. Imagine, the director of some important ministry, imagine the truth is, come to think of it, I guess in some governments, there isn't necessarily a direct connection between somebody's professional background and the ministry that they run. But come to think of it, so I guess that's not really accurate. But I guess maybe that doesn't make any sense though. Al Kopanim. But even within those ministries, let's say you have like the head doctor or something, it's funny because, I don't know, in certain places that I've lived, so you have like the health minister, Bichlal, certainly not a doctor, Al Kopanim, but imagine like the head of the coronavirus response team was like Bichlal, like, not so, wow. It's funny, once you actually think Lamaisa, it doesn't actually make any sense. But Al Kopanim, let's keep politics out of this. But I guess it's the same thing then and now. Oh gosh, and now I don't know where I'm going with this. All right, pretend I didn't say anything. All right, let's just back up and focus on what's the words in front of us and stay out of everything else. So let's just rewind and pretend like everything makes sense, which is that it's inconceivable to think that a kohen gadol would have never learned Chumash, would have never learned Parshas Achremos, and therefore that was true in the first temple. Yeah, of course, the kohen gadol was somebody who was head and shoulders above everybody, above his contemporaries. As Rashi says, "B'mikdash Rishon lo emidu ela al pi Torah kohanim u'gadim." Right, in the first temple, they only appointed based on the Torah kohanim who were appropriate, who fit the bill. However, in the second temple, it was a different story altogether. And when the Mishnah says that it was possible that you can have a kohen gadol who never even learned Chumash, that's kind of where things were at in the second temple. Domer of Yosef, Tarkavad, it says Rav Asi, but there's a girsa change to of Yosef. I don't know. Pick whichever one you want. Tarkavad the dinre ayla la marta bas baisus liane malka al du ukme leoshua ben gamla b'chane raveve. That Marta bas baisus, I believe that she, if I'm not mistaken, she's one of the people that comes up in the Gemara in Gittin that describes what was the famine that was going on in Jerusalem at the end of the second temple. She was a very wealthy, as Rashi points out, she was a very wealthy widow, and she married this fellow named Yoshua ben Gamla, and she paid Yanai the king to appoint her husband Yoshua ben Gamla to be the kohen gadol. So it was Pasha, a paid position. You just pay for it. You never learn Pashas Achremos. It's not a prerequisite. You don't have to. That's okay. Weiter. Erev Yom Kippurim Shachris v'chulei. So now we're already up to the morning of Yom Kippur, like Erev Yom Kippur. Tana Apas Seirim. So the Mishnah had said that they would pass before him cows and rams and sheep. So it says that there's a brayso that says Apas Seirim, even goats. V'tani didar my time below Tani Seirim. How come our Mishnah doesn't mention the goats? Because after all, he does, right? He does Seirim Echad L'chatas, or maybe Al Shnei Seirim Goralos, right? There were two goats, Goral Echad LaShem, Goral Echad LaAzazel. So those were goats. So Kevan the Al Chet Ka'asu. Well, since they are coming as sin offerings, Chol Shadaite, it makes him feel not so geshmak. We don't want him to be thinking about sins on Erev Yom Kippur, so therefore we don't pass in front of him goats, according to Tana in our Mishnah. Yachi Parnami Alcheitu Da'asi. Fact the Gemara, but the cows are also coming as a korban chata, so why are you passing cows in front of him? Par Kim Da'alav Alecha V'Kohanim U'Da'asi Be'echa V'Kohanim. Okay, let's put a comma there. When it comes to the cow, since the cow that he brings as a korban chata, who's it for? It's not for all of Am Yisrael in general. It's for him and for his fellow kohanim. Bechav kohanim. So, if among his fellow kohanim, if there was a fellow kohen who there was something that needed fixing, he sinned chas v'shalom. So meda yadale. So the kohen gadol would know. Umahadale b'tshuva. And he would help this fellow do tshuva, b'chulu Yisrael lo yada. However, he can't possibly know all of the potential sins of all of the Yidden, and therefore that was a little overwhelming for him. So therefore, when it came to the goats, and there would be a goat offering, a korban chatas of a goat to represent all of Am Yisrael, so that was overwhelming because he knows that there must be Yidden in Am Yisrael who have sinned, and he doesn't know who they are, and he can't help them personally. So it's overwhelming for him. The fact that he could see a cow, and a cow was brought as a korban, as a chatas for the other kohanim, within the kohanim, if there was somebody who needed a shtickle chizik, so the kohen gadol would be able to personally help him, and therefore it wasn't as overwhelming because he knows that there's something he can do about it. Ravina says, Ravina, Ainu Damar Inshe, this is what the people say, Ibar Achtich Dayala Have Beshuka Kamilo Sachlif, if the son of your sister, if your nephew, I guess, is some kind of like an officer or something, so a shtickle nudnik, unfortunately. So you should try to avoid him in the marketplace because he knows everything about you, right? He knows your finances, and if you got something to take, he'll know to take it from you. So therefore, the point is that familiarity means that people know things about you. So in this case, the kohen gadol can actually take a help his fellow kohanim. He knows about them. So if they need some chizik, he can give them chizik. But it can also work in the reverse, that if you have a nudnik who knows too much information, he can chap you. So we said that the entire week they wouldn't prevent him from eating anything. Tanya, we're learning a brayso of Yehuda ben Nakusa. Omer says of Yehuda ben Nakusa. Also we feed him flour and eggs so that he will vomit and puke and cleanse, if we want to say it in like a nice way. Amrullah, they said to him, they said, 1 second, don't feed him flour and eggs. Flour and eggs are going to make him see Keri, and we don't want him to see Keri. Tanya, we learn in the Brisa, Sumchis Omer says, Sumchis Mishum Reb Meir, in the name of Reb Meir, and Maichilin also, Lo Avi says, Sumchis in the name of Reb Meir, we don't feed him Avi, V'amila Lo Abavi. Some say we don't feed him Abavi either. Those are acronyms. We're going to explain what the acronyms are in a minute. V'yeshovim Aflo Yain Lavan, those who say we also don't feed him white wine. Here we go. Lo Avi, what is Avi? Avi is an acronym. Aleph, Beis, Yud. Lo Esrig, V'lo Beitzim, V'lo Yain Yashon. We don't feed him esrig, like on Sukkot, and not eggs, and not not old wine. V'amri lo abavi. Some takas say not abavi. Vos is das abavi. Lo esrig, v'lo beitzim, v'lo basar shamin. Not fatty meat, v'lo yain yashon, and not old wine. V'yeshom, those who say af lo yain lavan, also not white wine. P'nisha yain lavan, maybe it's lidei tuma, because white wine can make a person see Keri. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Zav. If you have a fellow who's a Zav, everybody remembers what a Zav is? Of course you do. So if you have a fellow who saw Ziva, now the interesting thing is that the other day he was mamish fressing. The day before he was mamish all you can eat. All you can eat. Mamish, he ate a lot. So we could say, you know what? What he saw that he thinks is maybe Ziva, we know he was eating quite a bit yesterday. We're going to assume that it's not actually Ziva, it's just his body reacting to all that food that he ate. Okay, where am I? Elazar ben Pinchas Omer says, Elazar ben Pinchas, Mishum Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, the name of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. In Machilin also, lo chagavi v'lo gabim. We don't feed this Zav fellow chagav when we're trying to figure out if he's going to be a Zav or not. We don't feed him chagavi and not gabam, also acronyms. Not any of these things that can make him tameh to see Keri. Lo chagavi, was is das chagavi? Lo chalav v'lo gvina, not milk and not cheese, v'lo beitza, and not eggs, v'lo yayin, and not wine. Man, do you hear the nudnik in the background? I mean, I don't want to call him a nudnik, that wouldn't be very nice, but he's surely making quite a bit of noise here. I don't know if it's not coming through on the recording. Most people usually say it doesn't come through, but I'll go upon him. Guy's been mowing his lawn. Let's go weiter. V'lo gabam. So what's gabam? May grisen shall pool. It's like bean water. All right. Uvasar shamin, and fatty meat. Umarias, and fish fats. All right. And not anything that could make him tameh kilu, to see carry to see sperm. What are all these things that he shouldn't eat that might make him become tummy? To teach that which the rabbis taught. There are 5 things that bring a fellow to be tummy, like to see carry, and these are them: hashum, garlic, v'ashcholim, cress, v'achalag logos, and purslane. Anybody know what purslane is? The Maisa Dennis probably knows. V'abeitzim, and eggs, v'agargir, and rocket. What the heck is rocket? Is that like arugula or something? Well, if you know what these are, do what you want with it. Kilu, they make a person tummy. What do you want me to tell you? So it says in the pasuk in Melachim Beis that Elisha did this kind of miracle thing where this fellow went outside to gather oris. Oris were like some kind of we're going to say that it's rocket, but apparently it grew on grapes or something, and then he put it into the food and it was poisonous, but Elisha did like some kind of magic to make it not poisonous. Anyways, so it says that he went out to gather these oris. Tanamish Reb Meir ze gargir. It's taught in the name of Reb Meir that oris is gargir, is this rocket. And Rabbi Yochanan Lamanikra Shman oris. Rabbi Yochanan says, why is this rocket stuff called oris shemeiras hasainayim? Because it makes your eyes very bright. Sounds good. Rav Huna gargir. Rav Huna says that I guess gargir. Well, I guess some of this. Wait, what's this gargir? I think it's gargir, right? Rocket. Yeah, this rocket. If you can eat it, do that. Eat it. If you can't eat it for whatever reason, put it on your eyes. I guess. Okay. So I don't know. I guess on the one hand we're saying this rocket makes you see tuma, become tummy, but on the other hand, apparently it's a very good thing. I don't know. Rav Papa says specifically this rocket that grows like around fenced areas because there's no other things that are growing around it, so it can really become potent. Alright. Rav Gidol says Rav Gidol Rav in the name of Rab. If you have a fellow who's a guest, he shouldn't eat eggs because if he eats eggs, he might see carry, and that's something that you want to avoid as a guest. Also, you shouldn't sleep in the clothing of the balabais, because again, if you see carry, it wouldn't be very nice to return to the balabais to give him back his to whatever he lent you, and you have your carry on it. That's not very nice. So Rav Kimikla le Darshis, this is interesting, very interesting, Lamaisa. So Rav Kimikla le Darshis machriz man havya Yoma. You hear that? Rav, pretty interesting. Rav, when he would travel to this place, Rashi says that he would go to this place called Darshish very often. He would say, hey, is there any woman who's interested in being my wife when I'm here? He would go to Darshish for a week, and he'd find a woman to be his wife for the week. He wasn't planning like a long-term relationship here. He was just like, I'm going to be in Darshish for a week. I'm looking for a wife for the week. We'll be together for a week, and then we'll go our separate ways. Rav Nachman also, he would go to a place called Shchansiv, and he would say, look, while I'm here, are there any women who would like to, is there a woman who would like to be my wife while I'm here? And the Gemara says, one second. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, says Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, lo yisa adam isha b'medina zov, yelech v'yisa isha b'medina acheres. One second. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says that a fellow should not be married to one wife in this place and another wife in another place, because sham yizdav guzei etzel zeh v'nimtza achnose achoso. Because what will happen, if you have Ruvain, and Ruvain's married to Rachel in this place and married to Leah in that place, and Rachel doesn't know about Leah and Leah doesn't know about Rachel, what happens if their children end up marrying each other? Rachel's son ends up marrying Leah's daughter, and they don't know that they're actually brother and sister. And there's going to be mamzers all over the place, which is a problem. And the pasuk says about this, and the land will be filled with zima, inappropriate relationships. No, so how could it be that Rav and Rav Nachman, whenever they would go visit somewhere for a week, they'd find a temporary wife? But but what if they end up having children, and then the children marry each other and create problems? So Amir Rabbanon Kala Islu. So they say, well, that's not really a concern because since they're rabbis, they're great rabbis, so, people, if Rav ended up having a son with a woman, so everyone would know, oh, that's Rav's son. And the same thing about the daughter. They would know that these are the children of Rav. These aren't just, it's not a random person, it's Rav. So, and the same thing with Rav Nachman. But one second, but didn't Rava say, but didn't Rava say that if they say to a girl, hey, are you interested in getting married to me? And she says yes. So then she has to wait 7 days without seeing any dam. Out of concern that maybe after she accepted to get married, maybe because she was excited to get married, she somehow that induced dam. So if that's the case, so she has to wait 7 days without seeing any blood. So how could Rav just show up in town and say, hey, I'm looking for a wife, and then boom, he has a wife? Don't you need 7 days without seeing dam first? So Rabbanon odu'e avu moda'u lihu. So they say, oh, that's not a problem. They knew in advance that they were going to be there. So in advance, right, Mikadam avu makdame, they would precede themselves, Meshadru shlucha, and they would send a messenger ahead of them to say, hey, Rav is going to be here next week. Are there any women who would be interested in being his wife? Very, very, very interesting. Those who say, Yichude avum yachdelu, so this is a very different answer and kind of takes a whole different perspective towards it, which is, no, they wouldn't actually marry them and sleep with them and potentially have children with them and mamish get married. It was more that if Rav was coming to town without his wife, so he would want that there should be somebody with him, but not necessarily to a sexual relationship, but just to have somebody around, because this is something that comes up in Masechta Ksubis, she'eno dome mi sheyesh lo pas b'silo mi she'en lo pas b'silo. It's not, right, there's a difference between somebody who knows that he has a wife, and that she's there, as opposed to somebody who doesn't have a wife at all. That, that when Rav would come to town, he didn't mamish need to get married for a week. The point is just knowing that he was in some kind of relationship, made his taivas a little, made it easier to kind of deal with staying tahor, as opposed to if he didn't have any woman in his life. Very, very interesting. But he wouldn't necessarily get married to her just for a week, per se. But I guess he would get married enough that they would be able to live with each other. I don't know, interesting. Okay, new Mishnah Misaru Ziknei Bezdin Ziknei Kahuna. Okay, so now the elders of Bezdin now handed over the kohen gadol to the elders of the Kohanim. Velu Lalias Beis Avtinas, and then they brought the kohen gadol up to the Beis Avtinas. Who remembers what the Beis Avtinas was? Avtinas, the house of Avtinas were the ones who prepared the ketores. So they now brought the kohen gadol to where he would be preparing the ketores. Vishbi'u, or doing the avodah with the ketores, or at least to practice doing the avodah with the ketores. Vishbi'u, and then the elders of Bezdin made the kohen gadol swear. V'niftaru, and then they went, v'halchu lahem, and they went away. V'amrulo, and what did they make him swear? They said to the kohen gadol, Ishi kohen gadol anu shluchei Bezdin, v'ata shlucheinu v'shliach Bezdin. We are the messengers of Bezdin, and you are our messenger as well as the messenger of Bezdin. Mashbi'in anu alecha, we're making you swear b'mishashachan shmo b'bayis hazeh, in the name of he who dwells his name on this house, on the Beis Hamikdash, shelo tishane davar mikol ma she'amarnu lach, that you shouldn't make any changes to all the things that we said to you. And then he goes and he cries, and they go and they cry. Rashi says the Gemara is going to explain, but Mistama, it's related to the fact that it's gotten to such a place where they mamish have to make him swear that he's not going to do any tziduki stuff. And now we say, look, if the kohen gadol was a Talmud Chacham, so he would learn all night. And if not, there were Torah scholars who would teach Torah before him all night. If he would normally read from the Chumash, so he would read from the Chumash from Lav Kor in the Lefanav, and if not, then they would read from the Chumash in front of him. What would they read from Lefanav before him? Be'iyov, Ezra, from the books of Iyov and Ezra, Divrei Hayamim. things that were pleasant to learn. Zchari ben Kvuto Omer says Zchari ben Kvuto Paimim Arbe Karisi Lefan b'Daniel. Many times I read before the Kohen Gadol Sefer Daniel. Very interesting. These are different names that we don't see very often. Right now we're seeing in the context of the Beis Hamikdash. Zechariah ben Kvuto, who's that? But I guess he was around during the time of the Beis Hamikdash. We also saw, who else did we see? We saw somebody quoted Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Who was that? No, that was Rabbi Elazar ben Pinchas. There was another person who we saw, Rabbi Yehuda ben Nakusa. Who's Rabbi Yehuda ben Nakusa? These are very interesting, different names coming up over here. That was Daf Yud Ches of Masechta Yoma. Some very, very interesting stuff over here. It was just a nice daf. We saw some interesting things about the differences between the first Beis Hamikdash, the second Beis Hamikdash, in terms of the stature and the quality of the Kohen Gadols, which is very, very interesting. The interesting Gemaras with Rav and Rav Nachman about having their sort of temporary wives, which was an interesting concept. That was Daf Yud Ches. Hope you enjoyed it. Peace.